Okay. Yep, we're recording. And so, yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Danny and Troy Show. And we're picking up where we left off, which was around creative writing and Danny's, pieces that are coming together with this intriguing characters, heroes, and obstacles coming out for us to absorb and connect to in whatever sense we like. But I'm really seeing a connection with business and business development and our situation through Data Logical Services. So yeah, over to you, Danny.
Thanks. You know, it's getting to a point in the character development, the main character, Drukpa, the madman, divine madman, as I'm following his development in my own way, I guess, without sounding too weird, and seeing where his own, the character's own development is taking him and me, the reader / creator, and Troy, of course, being the commentator on where all this is going and how it's being received by him, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm 3 chapters, I'll call them chapters, beyond. And we're going to try and do some catch up in exactly what is happening to the character Drukpa. I'd like to call him Druk,
Sure.
which is dragon. The Pa, I don't know, some ending or whatever, but we'll just call him Druk. Excuse me. And I think it's really interesting because I subtitled the next section, next expression, in a way that I have to step outside of me being in the character to, I don't like to offer an explanation outside of the text, but in this case, because we're dealing with a double-edged sword, I'd like to do it partially to explain to people, at least from my point of view, how the process works. And so in divulging what the character is going through, I've subtitled this processing. So it could get, nevertheless, I'll talk 2 seconds more, that during this processing period that I want to make sure, which otherwise should be contained within the creative process itself, without having to step outside of the character and say, well, here's what's going on, because a person should be able to deduce what is going on from reading the text, right? Sure. But the process that I'm experiencing, I wanted to divulge to people who are interested in creative expression. And in this particular creative expression, of course, could be drama, it could be writing, it can be painting, it can be any of the so-called artistic fields, right? And I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but to me, art is anything created by people. That you don't have to be a special person to be an artist, because I think everybody's special anyway in their own way, which, yeah, okay, I'll snip that one off. And let's get to the point where we are following a very confused character, Druk or dragon. Maybe I'll just switch to the English name.
Sure.
But Dragon is trying to figure out for himself how to develop his objective, which is to control all the money in the world. But he's not he's not looking at money per se, because it is the objective expression. And he wants to go inside of the expression to find out what the process is, with the outcome being him writing it down or recording it in words, and now in video and other things like that, which is at least is available from a retrospective point of view. So without further ado, it's called, and I'm going to edit as I read it because it's called Hokey Pokey.
Okay. Great.
And so Dragon has, I'm starting now. Dragon has a connection conversation with himself. First person to third person. The song, this is a song, Hokey Pokey. The song's title, The Hokey Pokey, was supposedly in homage to an ice cream vendor from the author Tabor's childhood, where I called it Joe Biden's Creamy Dreams, right? Subtitle, would call out Hokey Pokey, penny a lump. In Joe Biden's language, like it or lump it. So have a lick, it'll make you jump. In this case, Hokey Pokey was supposedly slang at the time for ice cream and the ice cream seller, which was called the Hokey Pokey Man. And just to remind you, there are like 10 verses, but you'll get the idea if I go through 2 of them, how the song progresses.
Sure.
So you put your right foot in, you put your right foot out. You put your right foot in and you shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. That's what it's all about. I'll do the hokey pokey. I'll do the hokey pokey. That's what it's all about. You put your right hand in, you put your right hand out. You put your right hand in and you shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. That's what it's all about, etc., etc.
Great.
And then it's the left leg, then it's the right leg, then it's the whole self, which I think, as we develop of putting your whole self into something, and it ends with, I'll do the hokey pokey, I'll do the hokey pokey, I'll do the hokey pokey. That's what it's all about. So, Dragon, Drukpa, says, to thine own self be true. These words are expressly important now. Why must I serve the demands of others? Am I to neglect myself to the point of becoming a non-entity, a servant of the people? I'd rather not, quite frankly. And as an aside, what is so bad about slavery? We have economic slavery, and no one seems to object. Is it because slavery is so often associated with mistreatment? I suffered mistreatment as a child by my parents, and no one told them how to be parents. They did what came naturally. Unprotected sex. I was an unexpected child. And what? The church was the real abuser, manipulating child abuse. Fuck your God, your devil, your second attempt, angels, patriarchy, Inquisition, Bible, and all that shit. Not a word of truth in the bunch. Lying, deceit, enough already. Why must I suffer for the USA sending heavy weapons to Ukraine? It's not my problem. I don't believe what you tell me. Why are you telling me anything? Is it that what you have turned the mainstream media into anyway? You and your fake news? He wiggled like a worm in a cocoon. The candle was burning at his feet. The cocoon was a silk-lined coffin, and he had been buried alive, like an Edgar Allan Poe story. He trembled on the edge of his seat. There is no people. Be not thy brother's keeper. Remember that little ditty? They have infected my mind with their own homegrown version of compassion. Weakness made popular. Care, along with faith, hope, and charity. Remember that lowest common denominator thing that constitutes a democracy? It constituted communism too, and a lot of good that did. That's what we have with equality, the gateway to a herd mentality. Losers in command. Note, I did not choose control. That's another division of Buddhism that he saw had been used, appropriated for their own use, bad ends. compassion in a pig's eye. It was a complete unfriendly takeover. Be nice, play fair, and while you're sleeping, someone will come and fuck you in the anywhere. Digitization would make it easy to see that every person was properly numbered, personalized. First things, people first. Troy, are you still there? Yep. Not even God could tell the difference between one and the other. They were all so much alike. Good job. Consistency is easier to market. Ladies and gentlemen, step this way. Put your left foot in, you take your left foot out. The great cookie cutter in the sky, the light and fluffy God, a kinder, gentler God, somebody you could talk to. I'm sorry, God is not available to take your call. Please leave your message and someone will get back to you in a couple of thousand years. Maybe. Beep. The big fish gobbled up the small fish, often as a way to show profit. Now it was to use the mindset such programs had established, especially in the areas of trust and references to knowledge storehouses. Everyone had become a whore. Whores are good. You can be a whore too. No one will know. Everything was for sale. Kings, gods, people, items, resources, actions, lives, oceans, countries, you name it. What's your asking price? What do you want? The moon? Dark side or light side? Both. These people care programs had a bad end. We must first recognize the push-pull of being nice and kind instead of remaining loyal to yourself and not allowing the greater good to anesthetize us into sleep. To sleep. Perchance to dream. Bullshit. All the dung you want for free. I will not allow myself to dream. I allow myself to live. It's clear to me that man has a violent nature and that war is the natural state of things. Enough toxic masculinity. Paybacks are a bitch. I can see the keepers of the planet having a belly roll of a laugh at us, their algal colony of post-creation. We were created to serve, we were created to work and kowtow to the aliens that use recombinant DNA to make gold miners out of the monkey simian, if you like, to dig for gold, which they needed to save the atmosphere of their own planet, aka Nibiru. They used an overpopulated planet, having eventually giving them the ability to reproduce, the task of assuming the role of a chess piece and was with each other as entertainment. Hey, look, ain't that funny? Fucking space niggers. Overpopulation means time for a war. Place your bets, ladies and gentlemen, place your bets. Now I know what you're thinking and have gone out on a limb to propose another mythology, some other than an equally unbelievable monotheistic gibberish. The Buddhist philosophy I know is that we do not believe, we know. Applies very well to this situation. The only reason we believe gibberish is that it has been bequeathed us from previous mind manipulation heritage. There's no evidence to support a one God theory. And those that do so out of tradition are doing so for their own benefit and not the humanization theories they say are in the best interest of humankind. And he would never believe otherwise. It was a litmus test of weakness. When he was younger, he converted to Judaism, traditional Judaism. Got snipped and all. It was yet another frail attempt to find truth, subjective reality. It looked good on paper, but in application, it failed, sucked. They had excluded him from the first moments. How? He was a Jew more than anyone who had ever been born Jewish. He had come to the faith. There's a reason to snub him. Faith there. They had said it, not knowing. So that bottomed out too. Then what? A journey into Hunaism? Always had to be some ism. Next, he tried Hunaism in Hawaii. Huna, Hawaiian for secret, is the word adopted by Max Freedom Long in 1890 to 1971, in 1936 to describe his theory of metaphysics. Long cited what he believed to be the spiritual practices of the ancient Hawaiian kahunas, or priests, as inspiration. That's from Wikipedia. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That and $3 will buy you a cup of coffee. How about this one? Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Really? Get the fuck out of here. I don't have a 12th century mind. Don't treat me like I can't tell what Joe B is not the president of the United States any more than there is a G-O-D. Both chairs are empty. He asked a Buddhist if he believed in God. He said, yes. Next, he asked the other if the other celebrated Christmas. He said, yes. Motherfucker. Next, we'll be celebrating Jumble Mass, if we're not already. As he knew, the decision to, say, start your own business is closely attuned to believing yourself over what others tell you to believe. Like Nietzsche said, Bible stories are for children. Vacation Bible school, brainwashing and child abuse included. No extra cost. Okay, when I was a child, I thought as a child. I acted as a child. But when I grew up, I put away childish things. Really? In a university class where he had taught philosophy, he came in one day and told the students that he had fired God and instructed him to clean out his desk and get the fuck out of the building in 1 minute, or he would call security and have him escorted out. The amazement of the students' faces was, how could anyone say such a thing? It would have been more effective if he had taken a bolt cutter and snipped the heavy chains around his wrists. Next day, one student was walking from the philosophy building where his superior was sitting and said to Drukpa from across the open yard in a chuckle that he now realized Drukpa had been joking and that there was a God. No, Drukpa replied, there's nothing funny about it. The very next day, the Calvinists on the board had Drukpa's super instruct him that they were not going to extend his contract. He burst into laughter and said, oh, thank you, Jesus, I'm free. Of course, it was a jaw dropper. Of course, Drukpa raced from his super's office in laughter, reported to the dean of students, who reported that he had opposed the decision and that his amazement was that nothing could wipe that smile off of Drukpa's face. He was right. The sandy hills upon which their institution was built, complete with sand traps, was under the tutelage of a transplanted Catholic Yankee from Notre Dame and a soul sister that were counting on courting a foreign country so they could expand the construction of golf courses over there. Truth is stranger than fiction. The local newspaper announced that they would not print such a thing because the college was an advertiser and they didn't want to lose their business. It was 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. Drupa went to his car, drove away. In St. Petersburg, our hero was the first American ever to be offered a position in the philosophy faculty and sociology and philology at St. Petersburg State University and international educational ambassador to the university, Putin's alma mater. He was the first ever to introduce public relations, entrepreneurship, and the financial and cultural revitalization of the city of St. Petersburg for its 300th anniversary in 2003. You think I would ever get credit for that? He said, never. I was simply happy that it was all instituted and others would claim it as their own. I was a candidate for Wag the Dog. Those things happen, and I can give you 10,000 examples that wouldn't mean a thing, but that would be a waste of time. Such is the way of things. Do the hokey pokey and turn yourself about. That's what it's all about. Now it all makes sense, amazingly. Sense in a nonsensical way. And that's what it's all about. Some weird logic was not so weird in analysis. It still seemed weird. Drupa had many more courses to run, more than he wanted, but nothing to be done. Club your way through. One could walk off the course anytime one wanted to. Others wanted to play through. So, the next chapter, which I won't read but announce so I will remember it, is entitled Time Has Come to Stop the Chatter.
Wow.
And that chatter, I've been reading to you.
Okay.
Those things, as I play the character, being the distinguished actor that I am, or pretender, as some people like to call it, because they don't know anything about it,
Okay.
Is a method of everything from blasphemy to, doubt
Sure.
and disbelief
Yeah.
in the things that have led him by the nose, having left out such things in child abuse as telling children about, the lake of fire in which they're going to burn for all eternity.
Right.
It's sort of like, okay, when you get that idea firmly in your mind, we'll talk about your future, young man. I still remember confirmation, where I had to go sit with a preacher that was Methodist belief, or whatever you want to call it, which I never could distinguish from Baptist or anything else.
Okay.
The evangelists, okay, they could jump up and down, just screaming, work out their anxieties about their own disbelief in a different way. But it was very difficult to capture if during this whole process I was asking myself, should I print that? Should I even write that down? The secret committee, especially if it's, on the internet, and now it is in at least one other way. They're going to come and replay a commercial I saw as a child where it was really kind of interesting. There was a family sitting in their living room, and on the shelf was a radio.
Okay.
The family was seriously listening to what was on the radio about freedom and, making money and all that kind of stuff. And the door burst in and somebody with an axe came and hit the radio.
Okay.
That's pretty effective, right?
Okay.
What was that called? Radio Free Europe. Yeah, they made the radio free, right?
Right.
But the commies had come in because people were listening to the truth coming over the radio.
Wow.
They didn't want people to know the truth. So Drupa, or me, or the mind meld of us two, had gotten to the point where I had to learn to dismiss my own silent editor in hopes that my violations would add to the whole idea of reaching a sense of freedom that one had to violate one's own beliefs,
Great.
one's own protection that had been built into, Bible stories, and people saying,
Sure.
"Well, it's in the Bible." That ran next to I read it in the paper or I saw it on TV, right? It's like I never, it wasn't even entertaining. I think I read the Bible once, but when I got closer and closer to Revelations or Armageddon or whatever, it was sort of like, this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. You keep pumping that shit into people's minds, and they'll help bring about the end of the earth. And then some guy come down from the clouds in a white bed sheet and a beard, and announce the second coming. And it was like, I always wanted to ask, okay, and what's next? After that?
Right.
What are we are all living happy in paradise for all eternity? That's a long time, Maybe I'll just step out of the room. Beg your pardon. For a while, go get myself a beer and then slip back in back at the room.
Well,
Hear the end of your speech.
I think the message for me is inside the story you just said. I mean the main, and in the title, the hokey pokey, it's about, putting something in, taking it out, turning around, and essentially doing it again. It's like an endless song. You could keep singing and singing and singing, but that's what it's all about. It's just doing some stuff, maybe spin around and then do it again. And and kind of grasp that and not worry about that, and not bring aspects of, okay, am I doing the right thing, or am I not doing the right thing? Could I be doing something else? Once you come to that acceptance aspect and say, yeah, this is what it's all about, and then just go for it and let things happen to the tune of the song, then it at least drops all that baggage of, am I doing this the right way? Or should I be doing something else? Or only if I did that back then I wouldn't be right here. Those are the things that, weighing
good point
it down. So yeah, I love the title. I love the message. I love the aspects, the connection. Again, I can see it. I don't know if it's just me, but the connections to business developments, business strategy. The mixture with your, life experiences, and that training aspect as well. I don't know if
excuse me.
It's on your mind, but this is what we're doing. We're giving training aspects to, well, it's not really training, it's more guiding. We're not saying, this is what you need to do, but this guidance aspect of giving people some guide of how to do creative writing. And I love that aspect that you're talking about after the piece, the confusion. Should I write this? Should I let myself just write this, or what are people going to think? But you overcome all that, and I think that's a great message as a guide for what we're talking about, and packaging that up into some sort of service and guide, or collaboration with others is really close to coming into fruition.
Thank you for saying that, Troy. Valuable feedback as always. I think that not only after reading it, but especially after hearing your reaction, I realize even more fully what it was I was writing, right? That somehow or another, there's a transition in my own thinking after having written it. And I must say, always questioning whether or not I was still on track.
Mm.
As I was seeing in retrospect the building my life that I had been living in,
Mm-hmm.
watching that it crumble, you know, sort of like the story of Saul, right, as he's fleeing, and his wife turns into a block of salt, not sugar, salt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, it is that's kind of, you know, the next image that comes into my mind of by in a sense denying the value of everything I have, me or the dragon has been taught, and its
Mm-hmm.
failure, because it wasn't recorded, of producing anything of value that I can see today. It's like, can I start my life over again? Right? Knowing what, yes, I can. Knowing what I know now, or what yeah, I said knowing, I didn't say believing.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing what I
Exactly.
know now.
Yes.
And it feels like, you know, I don't have to rely on my wish that everything would be made okay. You know, that with the coming of the sun on Easter morning, graveside beneath the cross, you know, that all my sins would be washed away. And my first question was, what sin?
Mm-hmm.
And I know it took a long time for people to build this whole idea of original sin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I feel myself like stepping out of line
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and saying, you guys go ahead. I'll catch up with you later. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm
Mm-hmm.
never going to get back in that line again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to strike me dead, oh Lord, you know, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Do it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you know, go back in the closet of some men's minds and
Mm-hmm.
you know, whatever. Now I hear the Pope is going to retiring because, so, you know, following the last one who couldn't make it to the end, right? Now
Okay.
this one's not walking around, but being pushed around in a wheelchair, and it's like the news is saying, well, you know, you don't be surprised if the next Pope ain't black or a woman, and it's like,
Okay.
is this like intervention by the Virgin Mary? Right. Yeah, I met a couple of virgins in college myself. Right. And they say that, you know, after every period, now they're a virgin again. Like, okay, that's the deeper meaning that the girls gave me about
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
maintaining their virginity.
Right.
Well, if the Pope's going to be stepping down, you know, I can see God now. He's scrambling around. Who do I talk to? It's like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
don't bother calling me, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be your advocate
Sure.
or your immigration agent. Right.
Mm.
And by the way, when I was a couple of years ago, I had this lawnmower that wasn't working. I couldn't get the carriage to drop down to cut the grass,
Mm.
so I gave it to my neighbor here, who's a, you know, a magician with mechanical stuff. And I said, Jim,
Mm-hmm.
would you have a look at it? Because it's really got to be simple. I mean, it was easy enough to pull it back, stick a screwdriver in here, and go on about your business.
Mm-hmm.
And came back in a couple of weeks, and his then wife was riding around in his yard cutting grass. And I thought, oh, Jim, it works. And then she crossed her arms and stood on the porch, got off the lawnmower,
Uh-huh.
and said, it ain't your lawnmower anywhere anymore. You abandoned it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, you got that one all worked out, didn't you? Right? I guess because you didn't have anything else to do but sit your fat ass on a lawnmower that just, you know, dropped from the sky, and you get to drive around in the yard, and it's so much fun that you decreed that I had abandoned the lawnmower so you could have it. And I said, yeah, you can have it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't fall over it. Don't fall off of it, and make sure you get out of the way when the lawnmower's coming back, because we would really hate to see you chopped into little grass-sized particles. Not my lawnmower anymore. It's your lawnmower.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Troy. You know, the part of the prospect of maintaining sanity
Mm-hmm.
while we're writing about, may I call it
Right.
fantasies, right? Or science
Right.
fiction, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Is nothing compared to what happens next in the next 2 or 3 chapters
Okay.
when we learn that, and maybe I've given it away already, I'm not sure anymore, of he's not interested in objects. He's interested in that energy space between when one object becomes another object.
Sure.
That's the area he's interested in right there, that
Sure.
transitory phase that is
Yeah.
often ignored, right?
Yeah.
Which one could call labor. Before
Sure.
you're broke, you work, you get money. That's the
Mm-hmm.
reality of it, right? That
Mm-hmm.
you must, in some way, at least in the present world, do something to justify the receipt of a token of your ability to perform.
Right.
But I think it's worthwhile that we drop back, and visit the whole area of becoming, not
Sure.
being, but
Okay.
becoming.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to that.
Have it.
I'd love like we keep saying, the freedom towards this whole approach of creative writing. You know, we can go as deep and as we like, and people do. I mean, yeah, this is the aspect, or this is the gateway to going as deep or as on the surface as we like. You know, we have songs that, you know, portray deep and hidden meanings, but maybe it's only, you know, recognized or observed or heard by the right people that at the right that those that are ready to hear it right then. But yeah, this whole aspect of just jumping on creative writing to see where it takes us, and it doesn't matter, you know, how deep we go or how, you know, surface level we talk about, but it's this freedom that comes with, okay, creative writing. There's no limit to what you can write. There's no limit of what you can and can't say. And you touched on that as well, as like having a medium. Yeah, we're putting it up on YouTube, and the whole, you know, battle on that as well is happening right now about people censoring and restricting and regulating. And there's emergence of new platforms that allow freedom of, you know, people to talk and to be, in our case, you know, artistic and creative writing. So yeah, it's really interesting for me, and I'm loving the story, the journey, the messages, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Well, thank you, Troy. I'll write this word down so I won't forget it. And thank you for those words. A matter really of learning to allow oneself,
Right.
right?
Beautiful.
So
Yeah.
I jotted a note for the future that there is no external authority. You know,
Sure.
Drukpa is slaying God in every way he knows how, in an attempt to remove that notion of control out of his life. He's
Sure.
in control of his life. He and nothing and nobody else.
Great.
And then if one were to come up with the notion of death, I would respond, and you already know the answer, that there is no death, right? Death, like life, is an eternal aspect. You can't turn life into death. I think it's laughable, right? That they're two different states of being, and being and non-being, and you can't go from being into non-being. I think it's
Wow.
against one of the laws of thermodynamics in the first place. But it's also sort of like your own portal, your own personal gateway, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To be able to say, you know, I'm taking this wormhole out of here.
Yeah.
I don't
No,
want
I
to play
see
anymore.
that. that whole aspect of life. I think it was Eckhart Tolle, the way he explained it, or the way I remember him explaining it, is like, I have life. If that statement, I have life, was true, then there'd be the I and life. And then if you had I and life, you could be separate from, there's me and then there's life, but you can't not be me without life. So it means life is me, or I am life. It's not I have life, it's I am life. And yeah, those sorts of messages I see, coming through. It's like, in that sense, as the opposite or aspect of death, then yeah, it's all one.
Yeah. Yes. All
Yeah.
inclusive.
Sure. Okay.
All right.
So
Well then, thank you for all the prior information, which our guests were not privy to. And because we are running a business, believe it or not, and talking this way too. Christ, somebody ought to outlaw us.
No
We're
way.
too
It should
free.
be. Yeah.
We're spreading
open
freedom. Do that, Troy. All right, Troy. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I was just doing it automatically. It's like, well, you can't be free, because the whole system will collapse, right? We've got to learn to rely on each other, and we've got to have rules. And I already feel a yawn coming on. Yeah.
Yep.
I practically stopped listening to news, right?
Sure.
Because all I'm doing is listening to somebody else's point of view.
Exactly.
And it's like, if I'm going to pick cotton, that doesn't mean that I have to pull the plant up too, does it? I would like to be selective. And by the way, halfway down the row, I decided I don't want to pick cotton anymore.
Sure. Great.
So get the bloodhounds out. We got another one. He's going that way, the dogs say.
All right.
I would always drop into this Southern figure. I guess we'll have to find a way to introduce this good old boy into Dragon's life.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe not. We'll see. Anyway, thank you, Troy.
All right.
See you tomorrow,
Thank you,
okay?
Danny. Yep. Talk to
Be
you
well,
tomorrow.
man.
Bye.
Bye. Ciao.